Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Defeated Sasuke and Got Harem with Many Girls Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. All of the Konoha genins with their Junin senseis inside the building were standing on the balcony and looking on at the arena floor in stunned silence. The Hokage himself was surprised at the unexpected turn of events. The Suna genins with their Junin sensei Baki looked at what just happened with calculative eyes. Dosu, age 14, and this Junin sensei saw that Konoha still had promising ninjas hidden under their shadow. Naruto, age 13, sported a smile of approval while Kurenai looked on in utter disbelief at what she thought was going to be a predictable one-sided match. Hinata, age 13, the Hyuga heiress stood calm and upright on the arena floor with her Byakugan fully activated and without her usual jacket on. That was so after she took it off and tossed it to the side before the match began. Her head protector was also tied around her head with some of her hair draped over it. Neji, age 14, the proclaimed prodigy of the Hyuga clan, was also on the arena floor with his Byakugan fully activated. But he was on his hand and knee, sweating hard, bleeding and coughing blood from his mouth, and struggling to catch his breath after sustaining swift and brutal assaults the Hyuga heiress inflicted on him, one after another. And to his and everyone's shock, except Naruto's, Hinata hadn't been struck once by Neji during their entire match of the preliminaries. Where did all of this power and strength come from? Neji wondered as he looked back at Hinata with anger, disdain and confusion. Hinata-sama has always been the weakest and the most disappointing heiress of the main house. She couldn't even win a fight against Hanabi-sama and her Jiyukin was always the poorest. How could she have changed so suddenly and hurt me, the prodigy of our clan, this bad? It doesn't make any sense. Fate had her future as a failure decided from long ago. Neji grew only angrier the more he thought about it. I've never seen Hinata like this before, Shino, age 13, remarked. Her unexplainable change is indeed remarkable. She's really pushing Neji to his limits, Guy said. I honestly didn't expect this outcome considering how the match started with all the things Neji was saying to her. All of you underestimated Hinata-chan, Naruto said with a grin. I knew she had it in her to show that bastard a thing or two about who's truly weak. But Neji was said to be a genius and Hyuga prodigy, Ino, age 13, said. When compared to each other, Hinata was said not to measure up to him. The same was said of Sasuke Tem, age 13, Naruto remarked, and yet Lee beat him in one fight. Sakura, age 13, and Ino both snarled at Naruto but they knew that he was telling the truth, as much as they didn't want to hear it. Kurenai was looking on at Hinata as thought she was trying red her. What happened to you, Hinata? Kurenai wondered. Kakashi saw the look on Kurenai's face and saw that she had a look that showed that she was trying to make sense of things. I don't want to hurt you any more than I already have, Nisan, Hinata said composedly. You're clearly in no condition to continue. I don't need your pity, Hinata-sama. Neji spat disrespectfully as he got up and stood back up looking Hinata straight in the eyes. You may have improved but I can still fight and come out the victor as fate decreed since this match's beginning. I suffered in many ways, Nisan, and I know you're aware of that, Hinata said sympathetically, but I have friends and a very special person in my life who acknowledged and helped me overcome my problems. And I can see that you're suffering too and have been for all these years by allowing yourself to be enslaved to your scapegoat, the illusion of fate. How dare you? Neji yelled before he charged at Hinata with all of his remaining strength with the aim to kill her. Hinata stood there and waited for Neji to reach her with his right arm extended out aiming to strike her heart directly. Seeing an opening, Hinata, at the last second, sidestepped Neji and thrust her fingers into his back, hitting several spots on his back. This resulted in Neji falling forward past her with the same speed before crashing down on his face and chest, sliding across the floor for a few seconds before coming to a stop and his bloodline limit deactivating. Neji found that he was unable to move any part of his body, he was completely paralyzed. Gekko Hayate went over and examined Neji. It didn't take him long to make a decision. Neji can no longer continue, Hayate announced. Winner, Hyuga Hinata. Yeah. Naruto cheered and shouted, way to go, Hinata-chan. You kicked. You're the best. Hinata smiled and blushed from Naruto's praise and acknowledgement. She's strong. Gaara, age 13, said with a deadpan facial expression with his arms crossed over his chest. I wouldn't have expected such a feat from one who looked so fragile. Hearing Gaara compliment and acknowledge someone without contempt surprised his siblings and even Baki. I have to agree, Baki said, she was well trained and disciplined in her arts. Her battle was flawless. Looks like Konoha has at least one capable genin kunoichi in their ranks, Tamari, age 16, said smugly. Her skills were that of a true ninja. I have to say she gave a good fight, Konkuro, age 15, added. With the Konoha nins, this can't be the same Hinata we went to the academy with, Sakura said in disbelief. I mean, that speed, her strength, her agility. It was uncanny, Ino added. Yes, Lee cheered enthusiastically. Hinata's flames have reached peaks I myself will train hard to reach. She's radiating with the brightness of her youthfulness. Troublesome, Shikamaru said, she's really becoming more and more like Naruto. Well, I told Naruto earlier that Hinata is very much like him, Lee added, and her youthful display against Neji only served to prove my point. I wonder what kind of training regimen Kurenai-sensei put her though, Ino said. It must have been harsh if it got Hinata to come this far. Hinata's moves, timing and judgment in tactics against Neji were incredible, Asuma commented. She's truly improved a great deal from how she used to be from what I've heard. Hinata surprised us indeed, Shino said. I had no idea she was capable of such feats at her current level. Nor did I, Kurenai admitted, catching everyone's attention, even Kakashi's and the Hokage's. What do you mean? Kakashi asked. Wasn't Hinata's display against Neji the results of the training you gave her? I trained her, Kurenai said. That I did. But during those times she looked like she was having much difficulty reaching her goals of improvement despite her best effort. But what I saw just moments ago went beyond any kind of training I put her through and everything I thought I knew about her. I always thought I knew everything there was to Hinata. How could I have missed this? It was no secret that Kurenai was always like a mother figure to Hinata. The thing that bothered Kurenai was that the match clearly showed her that she didn't know Hinata as well as she thought. And that could be said of many others who were inside the building. Things just keep getting interesting, Hiruzen thought to himself. Hinata is more deceptive and cunning than she lets on, a true ninja indeed. Hinata, with her Byakugan deactivated, went over to Neji, who was being placed on a carrying cot. As he was being raised up to be taken away, Hinata stood next to him and said, your paralysis isn't permanent. It'll wear off after you've been given healing and medical attention. Neji felt totally numb as he couldn't use a muscle in his body to raise even a finger. This can't be, Neji said. Fate had this fight decided. It had your future as an unchanging failure decided. We're responsible for our own futures and the decisions we make in life, Neeson, Hinata said. It's time you start understanding that and start taking charge of your own future and free yourself of the hold the idea of fate has on you. Saying nothing more, Hinata stood there as Neji was taken away. Hinata, however, was caught by surprise when a pair of arms wrapped around her from behind in a tight hug. You did it, Hinata-chan, Naruto cheered. I knew you could win. No doubt about that, Datbeo. Thank you, Naruto-kun, Hinata said with her blush growing darker from the close contact with Naruto. In life, people often believe they know something if not everything about a person. But in the world of ninjas, that isn't always the case. And oftentimes, one act can change what people think they know about others. 4 years earlier, Jiraiya was walking through the remains of the once famed Uzu no Kuni. The country was once governed by the now nearly deceased Uzumaki clan. It was the very clan that was once known and feared for bringing forth powerful seal masters like no other. The Uzumakis were also known for many things besides seals. They were also known for having massive amounts of chakra and longevity, outliving most and seeing many years. They even created seals that were powerful enough to contain Kyuubi, the strongest of the 9 bijus. In fact, many of the seals the ninjas in Konoha used were designed by the Uzumaki clan. Very few knew the history between the Senju and Uzumaki clans. They both descended from a common ancestor who in fact was the younger son of the Rakudo Sennin, and the two clans shared close ties with each other. So much so that Shadaime Hokage, Senju Hashirama, married Uzumaki Mito and thus united the two clans by marriage. Also, the Shadaime decreed and made it law that all of ninjas of Konoha were to wear the familial crest of the Uzumaki clan on their uniforms. Despite their prestige, the Uzumaki clan had many enemies from other nations that feared them and sought their destruction. Most of the Uzumaki clan members were killed while the few that survived scattered to other parts of the world with their locality being unknown. Uzumaki Kushina was brought to Konoha before the destruction of her clan to become the next Jinchuriki of Kyuubi since Mito, the first Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, was reaching the end of her life. Kushina took up residence in that village and became a kunoichi of Konoha. She later found love with Namikaze Minato, the man who later became known as Yondaime Hokage. Sadly, their lives were cut short due to an unforeseen occurrence involving Madara's attack on Konoha. The villagers were told by Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime, that Yondaime defeated the Kyuubi by imprisoning and sealing it into a newly born child named Uzumaki Naruto. The child Sandaime knew was the son of Minato and Kushina. Over the years, the villagers made Naruto's life bitter and lonesome. It boiled down to the point that even the children of the villagers were influenced by the grown-ups' mistreatment of Naruto and joined in adding to Naruto's grief and loneliness. Despite knowing the truth, Hiruzen never told Naruto the truth about his parents or heritage from the Uzumaki clan. The aged Hokage always thought it would cause too much trouble for Naruto if the truth was to come out. It was rather hypocritical considering the fact that Naruto's life was already filled with a great deal of trauma than it was worth. Jiraiya sighed as he thought about his godson whom he haven't seen or talked to once. He didn't even write to him or inquired of the Hokage of Naruto's life or treatment in the village. The Sannin knew who his parents were and that Naruto was the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi. He knew Naruto's parents died in Kyuubi's attack, being the ones that personally stopped Kyuubi and died in the process of doing so. Jiraiya often thought about making contact with Naruto but never actually made the time to do so. He always put his godfather responsibilities on hold and placed being a ninja in higher priority. He did this while continuously tracking Orochimaru and keeping tabs on a newly formed organization rising, the Akatsuki. Recently, Jiraiya received word from one of his informants in his spy network that Orochimaru came through the country once known as Uzu no Kuni. Jiraiya was told that Orochimaru was in search of something, but what the traitorous Snake Sannin was looking for was unknown. The Toad Sage decided to investigate and see what was in the desolate land that drew Orochimaru's attention. Jiraiya spent 2 days looking through the remains of the country but found nothing. Every lead was a dead end. This is proving to be a waste of my time, Jiraiya muttered as he left one old building and traveled to another. He walked into an old house that was in ruins like all the others. After walking around, Jiraiya was about to leave when his eyes caught something. There was an open door that led to a room that looked to be a book room at one time. Going into the room, Jiraiya entered and found that on the floor was the Uzumaki familial seal with blurred writings around it. The sage focused chakra into it and to his surprise the seals and the spiral crest glow and dispelled, revealing a secret door that led to an underground cellar. This should prove to be interesting, Jiraiya said as he journeyed into the cellar. Performing a fire jutsu, Jiraiya made a torch for himself to see through the darkness. Reaching the bottom, the Sannin walked through a short hallway and found a closed door before. Breaking the door open, the sage looked into and saw old withering scrolls resting on shelves all around. He looked through the scrolls but saw that the writings were too worn out to be understood properly. Others deteriorated from aging. After an hour, Jiraiya decided to leave. As he did, again something caught Jiraiya's attention. To his right was a relic wrapped and tied in cloth. Going over it, Jiraiya picked up the covered relic and found the kanji for legacy written on it. Untying and unwrapping the relic, the sage found that the artifact was in fact an ancient scroll of some sort. I wonder what's in this, Jiraiya said out loud. He wondered this as he untied and opened the scroll, only to find that he couldn't read the writings in it. The seals written in the scroll were far more advanced and complex in nature. They were unlike any seal Jiraiya had ever seen. In the center of the seals were sophisticated seal drawings made in a pattern to form a spiral design representing the Uzumaki clan crest. Truly the work of a true seal master, Jiraiya said as he studied the writings. No doubt it was an Uzumaki clan leader from long ago who designed and made this seal. Closing the scroll, Jiraiya placed the scroll inside his vest and left the cellar. With nothing else to find, the Toad Sage departed from Uzu no Kuni. 1 year later, Jiraiya spent many sleepless nights trying to study and interpret the ancient scroll. Even the Toad Sage Fukusaku was at a loss trying to interpret the ancient seals, and many books both Jiraiya and Fukusaku researched had no information on the seals. It was at that point that Fukusaku told Jiraiya that the seals were heavily encrypted and that the people in the Uzumaki clan from long ago who created the seals didn't want it discovered for reasons unknown. That, however, led to Jiraiya's curiosity to be heightened even further despite Fukusaku's warning about tampering with ancient seals that they had no information on. But after a great deal of effort, Jiraiya was finally able to decrypt and unlock the seals, allowing him to read the writings that were penned into the scroll. From what Jiraiya learned from his heavy research into the seals, he found that the seal drawings went as far back to 70 to 90 years after the death of the Rakudo Sennin. Thus the Uzumaki seal masters of that time were close in descent to the second son of the Rakudo Sennin. The sage spent a number of nights reading the scroll and the intricate hand signs that went with the seals. It took Jiraiya 5 months to understand the seals and the hand signs, but he finally caught on to the sequence. Wanting to know what the seal could do, Jiraiya decided to test it out. In an isolated forest cut off from civilization, Jiraiya decided to test out the ancient seal jutsu that night. Setting the scroll down on the ground, Jiraiya saw that the needed amount of chakra required for the jutsu was very massive. Clearly this was no ordinary jutsu, and anyone attempting it without the required level of chakra would die from chakra exhaustion alone. Acknowledging this, Jiraiya summoned Fukusaku and his wife Shima and merged with them in order to go into sage mode. He decided to use sage chakra for the jutsu Ogi. Jiraiya-chan, Fukusaku cautioned, I'm still wary about the use of this seal. The very fact that you even summoned us in order to use sage mode for this Fuin jutsu is alarming enough. Without a doubt, Shima added, this ancient seal is an S-class jutsu Ugi. Whoever this Uzumaki seal master was that created this seal must have had sage level if not Biju level chakra. Then again, the Uzumakis were renowned for their massive amount of chakra. There must have been a reason why this jutsu was created, Jiraiya replied, what I want is to discover what it can do. We're just saying to be careful, Fukusaku said, we don't want anything bad happening to you before you find and prepare the child of prophecy. I know, Jiraiya replied, but still, I wish to know what this Fuin jutsu can do. At that, Jiraiya closed his eyes to focus and summon the required amount of sage chakra into his body. After several moments, he reached the level he needed. Opening his eyes, Jiraiya raced through the intricate pattern of hand signs that went with the jutsu he was seeking to execute. When he was done, he clasped his hands together. Fuin Jutsu. Izo Sozo Fujin, Jiraiya said, summoning the activation of the sealing jutsu. No sooner than he did that when he saw that he couldn't move his body. Fukusaku and Shima sensed their movements were also restricted. I can't, Shima said with a strain, move. I can't either, Fukusaku said, what's happening to us? I don't know, Jiraiya admitted. Jiraiya was cut off when a sharp pain tore through him. He strained a scream that wanted to escape from his mouth. Jiraiya-chan, Fukusaku and Shima cried out to Jiraiya despite their own situation. Suddenly, seal drawings started appearing around Jiraiya's hands and traveling up to his forehead. Reaching his forehead, the seals then started writing more seal drawings down and all around the Toad Sage's body and to the bottom of his feet. When that was done, the seals glowed before being absorbed into Jiraiya's body. Seconds later, Jiraiya screamed out loudly in agony as though he was being torn apart from the inside. All of his sage chakra and regular chakra were being drained from out of his body. Fukusaku and Shima did everything they could think of the breakout of the paralyzed condition, but to no avail. The two sages could only watch helplessly as Jiraiya yelled out his pain. Moments later the glowing seals appeared around his whole body again before floating and removing themselves off Jiraiya's body and fusing into the written seals that were on the open scroll on the ground in front of Jiraiya. As for Jiraiya himself, he was panting heavily with trying to gasp for breath in spite of the fact that he was losing strength and consciousness fast. After fusing with the seals in the scroll, The seals in the scroll started glowing before floating off the scroll and forming into a bright glowing white orb radiating a mighty blue flame aura completely filled with sage chakra. The orb itself had moving seal writings and drawings all around it, and at the center inside the orb was the glowing Uzumaki spiral crest, which was spinning like a vortex. In the center of the spinning vortex was the shining golden kanji for legacy. The orb seal flashed brightly and shot off into the starlit night skies, flying off towards an unknown destination like a shooting star. Seconds later, Jiraiya fell flat to the ground face down unconscious, with Sage Mode being deactivated right after hitting the ground. Jiraiya-chan, Fukusaku and Shima cried out worriedly after mobility was restored to them. The scroll itself deteriorated into dust after its envisioned purpose was done. Some time later, Jiraiya's eyes moved slowly under his eyelids. A minute later, his eyes opened as they gradually adjust to the light. "You've awoken," Fukusaku sighed in relief, "thank goodness. Shima and I were worried that you'd never awake again. Shima is preparing some food." Jiraiya tried to sit up but found that he was incredibly weak to even move an inch. "Yuage," Jiraiya whimpered, "where are we?" "Back in Myobokuzan," Fukusaku replied before changing his tone into a scolding one. "That was a reckless and dangerous gamble you played performing that Kin Fuinjutsu Ogi. Not only were you completely unprepared for the side effects of using that jutsu, but you'd have surely died within that very same hour if Shima and I didn't hurriedly bring you back for immediate treatment and medical attention. That jutsu took a heavy toll on your mind and body and chakra. And it completely absorbed all of your sage chakra and normal chakra as it brought you to within less than an inch on your life. The one and only reason why you didn't completely die was because Shima and I were still fused with you, thus some of our chakra helped keep you alive long enough to bring you here for immediate help. It was unlike anything we've ever seen." "You're telling me," Jiraiya replied weakly, "how long was I unconscious?" 3 months, Fukusaku said. Jiraiya turned to his mentor with a surprised look. "Say what?" Jiraiya remarked. "You fell into a coma," Fukusaku said, "a deep one right after we restored your body. We tried everything we could think of to wake you but nothing worked. You responded to nothing we did and your vitals were on critical for days before we were able to stabilize them. We had no idea whether or not the condition was permanent. Left alone you'd have died long ago." The pain in Jiraiya had soon gone away. "Where's the scroll?" Jiraiya asked. "Destroyed," Fukusaku said simply. "You destroyed the scroll?" Jiraiya asked. "I guess it was too dangerous to be tested again, huh?" "No," Shima answered as she entered the room with some food for herself and Fukusaku. "The scroll self-destructed right after you used that jutsu. Evidently those seals were only for a one-time use, taking the user's life after its completion. What I would like to know is why a clan leader and seal master from the Uzumaki clan from long ago creates such a kinjutsu," Fukusaku said. "That's what I wanted to find out," Jiraiya replied. "All I know was that I felt chakra and things in my mind were being pulled from right out of me while my body was being dissected and analyzed. It took whatever it did to me and flew off to who knows where before leaving me for dead." In the center of the orb was the word, legacy, Fukusaku said. "I wonder what kind of legacy it was meant to create before taking your life." "I suppose time will tell," Jiraiya replied, "if or when that sealing jutsu's effects ever surface." At the Ninja Academy, all of the students were of various age groups were gathered together outside in the training yard. Many Chunin teachers, the headmaster and even the Sandame were there. Today everyone was gathered together outside to demonstrate their newly learned jutsu or fighting styles, be it from the academy or their respective clan. Many of the would-be genins were all talking and conversing with each other about how they intend to prove their strengths to whoever their opponent was. Sasuke, age 9, was brooding by himself to the side with most of the girls of this age group drooling over him. All but one Hyuga Hinata, age 9, whose eyes and heart was drawn to the class clown and village pariah, Uzumaki Naruto, age 9. Speaking of Naruto, he was off to the side hiding behind a tree reading a book of some sort, one of a series of books he had to keep from being found. Hinata couldn't help but notice that a blush would frequently appear on Naruto's face with a couple of giggles escaping his mouth when he read those books. "I wonder what he could be reading in those books," Hinata wondered, but never grew the courage to ask him personally. "It must be an interesting book." Hinata wasn't the only eyeing Naruto. At another spot, Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandame, was looking over at Naruto, who distanced himself away from the rest of the class. Not for the same reasons as Sasuke, but because he was up to one of his mischievous antics. It was no secret to Hiruzen what Naruto was reading, even though he wondered what triggered Naruto's complete change in character 9 months ago. Attention everyone, Iruka said, grabbing everyone's attention. Please assemble with your class as we're about to commence today's event, the Academy Field Day. Despite being engrossed in his book, Naruto closed and put his book away before making his way back to his class. As he did so, Sakura, age 9, and Ino, age 9, along with some of the other girls, were competing over who was going to stand next to Sasuke, much to the other boys' and teachers' annoyance. All of you please knock it off and give the headmaster and Hokage a professional impression of yourselves, Iruka, age 23, berated. You all are future ninjas of this village, so please play the part professionally. That got them to quiet down and pay attention up front. You certainly have a way with words, Iruka, Hiruzen remarked with a chuckle. Iruka scratched the back of his head with a small grin. Nah, Iruka replied, I'm just trying to help them become the best ninjas our village can produce. Such modesty, the headmaster commented as he made his way over to Iruka and Hiruzen. The headmaster himself was ABA class Junin ninja. I'm honored that you chose to be present for today's event despite your very busy schedule, Sandame-sama, the headmaster said. Well, Hiruzen said, even I need a break from all of my work. Besides, I personally wanted to see the progress everyone has made so far while attending the academy. I made lots and lots of progress, Jisen, Naruto yelled enthusiastically, just you wait. After today, you'll be begging to pass down that Hokage hat and robe to me as your successor. Datbeo. Knock it off, Naruto, Sakura yelled, this is not a time for one of your jokes. If anything, Sasuke-kun has a better chance at the title Hokage than you do. Ain't that right, Sasuke-kun? Sasuke grunted with his hands in his pants pocket. Well, Naruto, Hiruzen smiled, I'm sure with Iruka's help you've made some improvements. So please do your best. And that goes for all of you here. All of the students nodded their heads. The headmaster stepped forward to address the students. The purpose of the Academy Field Day is to gauge the progress not only you as future ninjas have made but also to assess where your strongest and weakest points are and how we can work on strengthening where your weaknesses are. Those with weaknesses aren't fit to be ninjas, Sasuke remarked, they'll just get in my and everyone's way. Sakura-chan, Naruto remarked, what was that comment about Sasuke making Hokage before I do? Because I doubt that Jisen would name someone as cold and arrogant as him as his successor. Don't talk about Sasuke-kun like that, another girl said before Sakura could give a retort to Naruto. Everyone stop this petty argument and stay focused on the purpose of today's activities, the headmaster stated firmly. He waited until he had everyone's attention. Good, the headmaster said, now, we'll start with taijutsu. Each of you will be given a spar partner and both you and your sparring partner will demonstrate your taijutsu skills. No weapons, ninjutsu or genjutsu will be allowed during your taijutsu match. Seriously injuring anyone is not permitted. Disobedience to these rules will result in immediate disciplinary actions. After your taijutsu match, you'll be tested in the use of weapons. Your third test will be your ninjutsu test. Is there any questions? Are all this troublesome fights between classmates really necessary? Shikamaru asked boredly. At least show some enthusiasm in performing in front of your Hokage, Shikamaru, Mizuki said. Shikamaru simply shrugged. Next to him was Choji, who was eating a bag of potato chips. Now we'll divide and pair each of you with your sparring opponents, Iruka said. First match, Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke grunted. Alright, Naruto cheered excitedly, I'm first to show Jisen how far I came in my training. The only thing you'll show is how far your training will crash you down into the ground on your face, Naruto, Kiba, age 9, mocked, causing everyone to start laughing at Naruto. Shut up, Naruto retorted, at least I know when to take showers so as to not smell like the pets you sleep with. Now everyone was laughing at Kiba, who was now fuming at Naruto. Why you, Kiba, that's enough, Iruka yelled, the same goes for you too, Naruto. Now Sasuke, Naruto, step forward and give each other the tradition shinobi greeting, a sign to show good sportsmanship and no hostility. Naruto and Sasuke both made their way to the front where the match was to be held. Naruto made the hand sign of friendship, but Sasuke gave no regard in doing likewise. He just looked at Naruto as someone who was inferior and beneath him. What's the matter, Sasuke? Naruto asked with annoyance, too high and mighty to follow directions. I'll only do so with someone who I consider my equal, Sasuke replied. You're not such a person, Naruto. You're right, Tem, Naruto remarked. I can never dream to equal or rival your selfish, undisciplined arrogance. Sasuke snarled at Naruto, who in turn snarled back at him. Show the dead last a thing or two, Sasuke-kun. Ino yelled. Don't take that crap from him, Sasuke-kun. Sakura yelled. Many of the other girls and even some of the boys were cheering Sasuke on to pummel Naruto. Hinata was the only one in the background cheering Naruto on, though not as audibly as everyone else who was cheering for Sasuke. Naruto turned and looked at Sasuke's fan club with disgust and irritation. Hiruzen sighed to himself seeing such displays before him. He knew Sasuke's behavior was a problem and clearly no progress was made in changing his character. Sasuke, Naruto, Iruka said, be professional about this before your Hokage. Now prepare to spar. Sasuke said nothing as he assumed his battle stance. Naruto stood there as though he knew of no stance to take. Everyone in the crowd expected to see a quick match, with Naruto as the obvious loser. Sadly, even Hiruzen admitted to himself that Naruto wasn't at Sasuke's level in many things in regards to being a fighter. But with regards to everything else, Sasuke failed when compared to Naruto. Ready, Iruka said, begin. As expected, Naruto charged head first towards Sasuke at a fast speed. He threw a quick right punch at Sasuke, which was easily avoided, as Sasuke sidestepped Naruto to the left. Predictable, Sasuke mocked as the maneuver caused Naruto to seemingly trip forward, making him appear like he was about to fall to the ground. Things changed, however, as Naruto turned on his right foot and swiftly brought and swung his left foot up, effectively catching Sasuke's face in his range as he, Sasuke, passed him by. Sasuke was sent spinning and sailing to the ground with a facial bruise and busted lip as Naruto managed to regain his balance and keep from falling to the ground. Everyone was left stunned and utterly speechless after seeing how Naruto within mere seconds made a fool out of the now dazed and humbled Sasuke, who was struggling to get back up while nursing the injury Naruto just inflicted on him. Did that just happen? Shikamaru, age 9, asked, too shocked to believe what he and everyone else saw. That's what I'm trying to believe, Choji, age 9, remarked. He caught Sasuke completely off guard, Shino, age 9, commented, an outcome I was not expecting at the very least. It was a lucky shot. Ino replied in denial, there's no way Naruto could have hit Sasuke-kun that easily. It was just a case of extreme dumb luck. Regardless of what was being said, Hinata looked very happy and pleased that Naruto won the first match against Sasuke, though she never expected it to end so soon in Naruto's favor. First blood in round 1 goes to me, Sasuke Tem, Naruto said with a large grin, ready for round 2. Sasuke, hot with anger by what just happened, got back up and spat blood to the floor. The pain from the assault was still biting where he was struck, with blood still trickling down from his busted lip. You're gonna regret that, Dobi, Sasuke replied as the got back in his fighting stance. Ready when you are, Naruto said. Iruka began the next match between the two boys. Naruto and Sasuke engaged in combat again, but after 3 minutes it ended with Naruto being flipped and tossed down to the ground on his back with Sasuke standing over him. All of the girls, but Hinata, cheered for Sasuke, while the guys laughed at Naruto. I told you it was dumb luck that Naruto won that time, Ino said. There's no way Naruto would have beaten Sasuke-kun that easily, another girl said. But, Naruto-kun didn't take as long to win the first match with a single blow, Hinata thought out loud, which caught all of the students' attention, including Sasuke's. Sasuke was about to give a retort to Hinata when, that much is true, Hinata, Hiruzen spoke up, earning the attention of those hearing him. During the first match, Naruto gave the deceptive display that he was attacking foolhardy in recklessness. But from what we saw, Naruto's moves were clearly timed and calculated to the letter, totally catching Sasuke off guard. I'm led to believe that Naruto had it all planned out. Hearing that acknowledgement made Naruto's spirit soar the skies. Sandaime and Hinata both were giving him positive attention. But Sasuke came back and gave Naruto a good bout. Sandaime added, in the past surely Naruto would have lost easily to Sasuke. But from what I'm seeing Naruto has truly came a long way and improved if Sasuke is being made to take Naruto serious. Everyone knew that Hiruzen wasn't saying those things just to stroke Naruto's ego or to make the blonde look good in front of everyone. Sandaime was telling the truth. Turning to Naruto, Hiruzen said seriously, but don't in any way let what I said go to your head Naruto. Of course I won't Jisen, Naruto said as he stood back up, I'm just happy that you're proud of my improvements. Sasuke was listening and thinking about what the Sandaime was saying about Naruto. Naruto hid his improvements well enough to fool all of us, Sasuke thought, but still there's no way Naruto should have been able to still hit me and keep up with me, even with his improvements. Okay everyone, the headmaster said, we'll next move on to our next two opponents. The sparring sessions continued until all of students had their turns. Some of the matches ended in a draw while others either won or forfeited after being overpowered or outmatched. Good job everyone, Iruka said. Next up, weaponry. Each of you may select a weapon of choice, whether it's a kunai or shurikens. The students were led to the tables that held the mentioned weapons. After selecting their weapons of choice, the students were told that they would be taking turning attacking the human-shaped wooden dummy posts. Some were able to hit bullseyes while Sasuke managed to hit all directed areas on target dummy. Naruto came up next and with his first kunai, with a small portion of his chakra added, he aimed and threw it hard at the practice dummy, only for the kunai to be deeply embedded into the dummy's crotch. The males that saw this couldn't help but mentally put their hands over their crotch, some literally. You missed the objective area to strike Naruto, Iruka said while hiding the cringe that wanted to appear on his face. I know, Naruto replied, but at the very least I castrated him in the worst way. If that dummy was a real man, he'd die horribly and painfully. Iruka and the others couldn't argue against that though none of them would want to die such an agonizing death. Next time aim for the heart or skull, Iruka said, it might help if you visualize an enemy in place of that dummy post. That was why I aimed between the legs in the first place, Naruto remarked. Iruka blinked and looked at Naruto again. What kind of enemy did he visualize, Iruka wondered. Later that day, after the students were allowed to take a break and go for lunch, they returned back to the training yard. All right everyone, Iruka said, we're now at the third and final part of today's event. Each of you will demonstrate one of your most effective or strongest ninjutsu. They can be those learned from the academy or from your respective clans. Keep in mind that this third event is not to be used as an opportunity to show anyone off. If your ninjutsu requires a target, one of our instructors will volunteer to be used. However, no fatal jutsus are to be used on anyone, am I clear? All of the students nodded. Nara Shikamaru, Iruka called out, please step forward and demonstrate a ninjutsu. Shikamaru shrugged with a bored expression and performed a henge, changing himself into the Hokage. I find today's events to be troublesome and a bother for all of us here, Shikamaru said imitating Hiruzen's voice, I decree that you all can leave and go cloud watching for all I care. Naruto and the others started laughing and cracking up at Shikamaru's antics. Iruka was all but amused though Hiruzen took it in good humor as a chuckle escaped his mouth. Alright Shikamaru, Iruka said, you did good. Shikamaru dropped the henge and walked back to Choji. Nice one Shikamaru, Choji said. I'd have done the same but you beat me to the punch, Naruto added. I was just expressing how I feel at this point, Shikamaru replied. Most of the students performed one of the jutsus they learned at the academy. For Sakura, she performed Bunshin no Jutsu, and Ino performed one of her clan's jutsus and took control of one of the adults' bodies for a couple of seconds before returning back to her own body. After several students went, Sasuke went and took his turn. Alright Sasuke, Iruka instructed, please perform a ninjutsu of your choosing. Sasuke simply nodded without saying a word. Going over to one of the wooden target poles, Sasuke performed a few hand signs and fired a stream of fire from his mouth straight into the wooden pole, effectively setting it on fire. All of the girls cheered while Hinata, though not among the cheering girls, admitted that it was an impressive jutsu. The other boys were also impressed while Naruto just looked bored. Very good as always, Sasuke, Iruka said. Well done. That was nothing. Naruto stated, I created a powerful jutsu that will effectively take all of you out with a single blow, leaving all of you in heaps of your own blood. You're all talk, Naruto. One of the students remarked. Quit wasting our time with your garbage. Don't believe me. Naruto shot back. Fine. Let me go next and I'll demonstrate my new creation. Fine, Iruka said with annoyance, just get on with it. Naruto hurried and stepped forward. All of you ninjas watch closely, and including Yuji-san, Naruto said with a mischievous smile. From the smile alone, Hiruzen knew that Naruto was up something, and by something, he knew it was going to be a stunt he was going to regret allowing to take place. Hinata was curious as to what jutsu it was that was as lethal as Naruto declared that he created by himself. I bet Naruto screws up in just the attempt, Kiba joked. We all know he's at even creating a perfect bushin and doing a henge the right way. The students started laughing while Naruto ignored them. All right now, Naruto said, prepared to be taken out. Gathering the required chakra, Naruto clasped his hands together and made a hand sign before bursting into a cloud of smoke. As the smoke cleared, excuse me, said a new, very sweet and shy-like feminine voice in the clearing smoke. When the smoke cleared, it revealed an extremely beautiful long-haired blonde young woman with large S completely soaked with water, with the remaining smoke covering only parts of her S and genitals. The female asked shyly and nervously, I lost my clothes and I'm cold from the pouring rain. Would one of you men, please be so kind as to use your body to keep me warm? The result was instantaneous and extremely effective. Males of various ages and ranks were blown back and off their feet from nasal blood loss, and the Hokage himself was no exception. True to his words, many of the ninjas were knocked out with blood coming out of their noses. Naruto dispelled the jutsu, seeing that it accomplished its designed purpose. Waroke number jutsu. Naruto laughed. I warned you that my new jutsu is dangerous. I can effortlessly kill all of you right now in the comatose state I put all of you in. The girls weren't amused at all by the stunt Naruto pulled just a moment ago. But they were even angrier at how Naruto proved his point as he pulled out his kunai and acted as though he was slitting the throats of all of the knocked out males as he hurriedly passed them by, though he only gave each of them a small cut on their neck. Though Hinata was impressed that Naruto was able to knock out all of the ninjas around him, however, she too frowned at the method in which he did so. The girls were expecting the older kunoichis to lash out against Naruto for what he did, but were surprised that they didn't do anything to reprimand him. Aren't any of you kunoichis going to punish him? Ino screeched. That perverted stunt he pulled was very effective, one of the kunoichis interjected. It even knocked out the Hokage. Never knew the old man of his stature as big a pervert as all the other men in Konoha, remarked another kunoichi. Girlfriend, where have you been? Whispered another kunoichi. There was a rumor years ago that he used to peek in the women's bathhouse with his pupil Jiraiya-sama. How come none of you are angry at Naruto? Sakura asked indignantly. He made us girls look bad. Exactly how ignorant and naive are you really about the world of ninja? Asked another kunoichi. I don't know what Iruka is teaching you girls, but the real life of the ninja isn't fun and games. Cunning, planning and deception are among the many tools ninjas must have in their arsenals, and sometimes we must use unfavorable methods to achieve and complete our assigned missions. And there are occasions when seduction and incentives are among the tools that we ninjas have to use also at our advantage. Naruto clearly demonstrated his understanding of what I'm saying when he got the males and even the Hokage to drop their guards against him. I know he's the least favored boy in this village, but today's event shows that he holds promises. I'm more disturbed by the fact that Naruto can play the role of a so convincingly that all the guys can fall for him, Sakura remarked. Would that happen to include Sasuke, seeing that even he was caught off guard by Naruto's jutsu? The same kunoichi asked, pointing to Sasuke. Sakura and the girls turned and saw what the kunoichi was talking about. Looks like Naruto knows more about what kind of girl appeals to Sasuke than any of you girls do, the kunoichi joked as the other kunoichis laughed at the younger girls' expense, seeing that all of them continuously failed to get Sasuke to notice them. The girls, minus Hinata, didn't take too kindly to the implications of the kunoichi's words as they wondered what about themselves they were lacking in terms of feminine appeal. After another minute, the males gradually woke from their induced slumber. When they all did, they found that the females gave them all dirty looks. You're all dead and disgraced. Ino barked. I can't believe all of you fell for Naruto's perverted jutsu. Sakura added indignantly. Hey, Naruto replied with a large grin, it got the job done. So what do you think, Jisun? Ready to hand over that Hokage hat to me seeing that I took you and all of the male ninjas out with a single blow? If all of you take a moment to feel the cuts I put on your necks, it shows that if I were serious, you all be dead now. Hiruzen felt his pride deeply wounded from Naruto's latest stunt and remark. He knew that he and along with all the others was going to be the laughing stock of the entire village for who knew how long. Looking for a way to save face, Hiruzen said, there's a lot more to being Hokage than just performing the strongest or the most effective jutsus to take out your enemies, Naruto. And it's not about getting your way all the time just because you possess governing power. As the Hokage, I serve the village, not the other way around. What do you mean? Naruto asked curiously. As the Hokage, Hiruzen elaborated, you must love, nurture, and protect the village and everyone living in it, young and old. And most importantly, you must be ready to lay down your life for the village at a moment's notice. But isn't that what all of us ninjas are supposed to do in the first place, Jisun? Naruto asked. Hiruzen nodded. Yes, Naruto, that much is true. But as the Hokage, I have to take on weighty responsibilities that affect the lives of everyone living in the village. The ninjas and civilians of the village rely on the Hokage not only for leadership but guidance in preserving the morale and stability of our society while developing future adults like yourselves who will be the next generation to step up in preserving and protecting Konoha and the foundation it was built on. Naruto took a moment to take in everything Hiruzen was telling him. Though the others were listening also, Naruto felt that Sandaime was talking more to him than the others. If I learn to do all that, Naruto asked, would you step down as Hokage and let me take your place as your successor? Only time will tell, Naruto, Hiruzen said with a smile, but you still have a long way to go in your maturity and development. Just you wait, Naruto grinned, I'll prove to be the best choice as the future Hokage. We'll see, Hiruzen said as he turned to everyone else, everyone here did well today, and I'm happy to see all of the excellent progress you all have made. I hope all of you continue in your advancements and become the new leaves that will blossom and radiantly flare with the will of fire of our village. After the Hokage's concluding words, Iruka directed the students back into the building. As the Hokage was watching the youths go back into the building, he noticed how the kunoichis were whispering and snickering about how he managed to narrowly escape looking bad in front of the young female students after the stunt Naruto pulled. It'll be a while before I hear the end of this, Hiruzen sighed with dismay. Later that day, everyone was going home for the day. About their day at the academy was over. None of the girls really said anything about what Naruto did and how even Sasuke had succumbed to Naruto's trap. The guys grumbled at how Naruto made them look bad while Shikamaru really didn't care more or less. Sasuke wasn't at all pleased at how Naruto twice caught him off guard with the second stunt being worse than the first one. How could I have slipped so badly and allowed the Dobi to make a fool out of me twice in one day in front of everyone? Sasuke wondered. He even managed to outwit and make a fool out of the Hokage and all of the other ninjas that were there today. He even showed that he had the advantage to kill all of us after he. Sasuke-kun, a feminine voice called out him. Sasuke turned to see Sakura approaching him. What do you want? Sasuke asked. Catching up to him, Sakura said, don't feel bad about what Naruto did. You still did very good out there. I don't need your concern, Sasuke said emotionlessly, I'm fine. That's good to hear, Sakura said, I'm happy to see that Naruto's childish prank for a jutsu didn't get your spirits down. I lost to Naruto twice today, Sasuke said with a hardened tone, and the second time he showed that he had the chance not only to kill me but all of the other ninjas there. I see nothing childish about that. Sakura flinched at Sasuke's angered tone. Leave me alone, Sakura, Sasuke said coldly as he walked off, I have much to think about. Sakura watched as Sasuke left without so much as giving her a glance. Hey Sakura-chan, Naruto called out as he ran over to the pink-haired girl, you busy? I was hoping that. Naruto was cut off when Sakura turned and tried punch him in the head. Naruto ducked at the last second and back away from her. Hey, Naruto asked defensively, what did I do? What did you do? Sakura barked, you made Sasuke-kun look bad and messed up my chance to really talk to him. I don't see how that's my fault, Naruto replied, Sasuke's failures is his own fault. You can't blame me that I managed to draw blood from him twice. And I wasn't going to let him look good while everyone else was expecting me to look stupid and be laughed at. Whatever, Sakura retorted, still, you have a long way to go before you can begin dreaming of measuring up to Sasuke-kun. I don't see what's there to measure up to after seeing how low Sasuke fell for me as the hot girl I turned into, Naruto mocked, maybe he's also seething at the very fact that I'm not actually that girl he passed out for. But on the plus side of things, I personally confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt that Sasuke-tem isn't gay. To be honest, I was starting to wonder seeing that he has never given any of you girls so much as a look. Sakura felt her feminine pride deeply wounded from Naruto's stinging comments. It wasn't long before Naruto felt bloodlust building up within Sakura. Naruto! Sakura roared as she chased after Naruto, who was now on the run from a raging Sakura, you're dead. Once outside, Naruto turned to the left and ran around the corner with Sakura in hot pursuit. Get back here, Naruto! Sakura yelled as she continued running after him and out of the academy grounds. A figure jumped down from one of the tree branches after seeing the two figures running from the academy grounds. That should keep her busy for a while, Naruto said to himself with a grin. I don't know how I learned Kage Bunshin, but that jutsu sure comes in handy. Naruto found that for the past couple of months, memories of years of training, studying, research and new understanding have been appearing and integrating into his mind. He couldn't understand why this was happening to him, but from what he was experiencing, he loved what was happening to him and how he was slowly changing, but both mentally and physically. He found that he was smarter, faster, and stronger, and for some reason he couldn't understand, he enjoyed adult-oriented readings and had desires to peek in women's bathhouses, which he had to fight off. Hell, he even had a better understanding about his body and that of females. For a while, Naruto wondered if it was some kind of unknown bloodline limit that was awakening within him. He thought about telling the Hokage about it, but in the end he decided against it and decided that the few who knew about his changes and newfound knowledge the better. Going back to the academy's training ground, Naruto returned back to the human-shaped wooden post he embedded the kunai in. After seeing that no one was around, Naruto, summoning chakra and the required strength and speed, performed a swing kick at the post, effectively breaking the post in half with splinter shards flying all over the place, with the main chunk of the post flying far from where it originally was until it hit the ground. Ah! Naruto relaxed with large smile on his face. That got the pent-up anger out of my system, now for some well-deserved ramen. Naruto hurried out of the training ground and over to Ichiraku. While on the way, he pulled out his orange book and resumed where he left off at. A blush and perverted giggle escaped his mouth while reading his book and making his way to his next destination. Unknown to Naruto was that a female figure was watching him from the shadows behind the trees the entire time and was shocked by the display of power and strength Naruto demonstrated, including when he eluded and tricked Sakura into chancing after a Kage Bunshin he created. Naruto-kun, Hinata wondered to herself, you're stronger and smarter than you let on. Why do you hide your real self from everyone? Could I ever be as strong as you? Hinata wondered this as she watched Naruto happily make his out to his next destination. Before long, Hinata-sama, a masculine voice called to her. The Hyuga heiress turned to see Neji, age 10, approaching her. It's time to return home, Neji said with a neutral tone. Your father wouldn't want you to be late for your Juyuken lessons. Yes, Nisan, Hinata said. Truthfully, Hinata wasn't looking forward to her lessons, and her progress in her clan's Juyuken wasn't manifesting in the least, much to her father's disappointment. Hanabi-sama, age 4, shows more potential than you, Hinata-sama, Neji remarked coldly. I don't see any reason for you to even bother to attempt to change what can't be changed about yourself. Neji's words pierced Hinata deeply. Normally she'd have given way to tears, but watching Naruto had always given her the needed courage and strength to keep trying as hard as he does, especially today's events. Without saying a word to Neji, she left and made her way home with him escorting her. While on her way, her mind drifted back to Naruto and everything she witnessed both with and without Naruto's notice. What she saw moments before Neji's arrival aroused an even deeper curiosity in Hinata about Naruto. She had to find out more about him that he sought to hide from everyone. A year later, ever since the Academy Field Day, some at the Academy looked at Naruto, age 10, differently, while others looked at him suspiciously. He was still the same class clown with the lowest grades and worst student with problems performing the simplest Bushin no Jutsu and Kawarimi. Iruka sighed at how Naruto performing in class while thinking about what Hiruzen discussed with him some time ago. Flashback. A year ago, Iruka was on his way to the Hokage Tower after being summoned to report to the Hokage after his day at the Ninja Academy was over. He could only wonder what the Hokage wanted to talk with him about as he entered the building and made his way up the stairs to the floor of the Hokage's office. Upon arriving, he knocked on the door and waited for a reply. Yes, Hiruzen said from the other side of the door. It's me, Iruka. Iruka said, you summoned me to report to you after my day teaching the class was over. That I did, Hiruzen confirmed. Please come in. Iruka opened the door and stepped into the office, closing the door behind him after entering. The Hokage placed some tobacco into his pipe and lit it before taking a puff out of it and exhaling the smoke from his mouth. Iruka, Hiruzen said, do you know why I summoned you today? Not entirely, sir, Iruka said, but I'm sure that it would be a matter of importance. The Academy hosted the Field Day event as a means to gauge and critique the level and caliber of all of the future genins of your class. After everything we saw, tell me please what you think of your students' progress. From what they demonstrated, they collectively show tremendous promises, Iruka replied, some more than others. With regards to the latter part of your statement, Hiruzen asked, who do you believe shows the most promise in your class? Iruka thought about what Hiruzen was asking. From Uchiha Sasuke's performance and grades, Iruka said, he's well on his way on becoming Rookie of the Year by the time he graduates and becomes a genin. Many consider him a genius like Hyuga Neji, who's also well on his way on becoming Rookie of the Year of his class before Sasuke. I understand where you're coming from, Hiruzen replied before calmly taking a puff from his pipe and exhaling, but you didn't answer my question. So I'll ask you once again, who do you believe shows the most promise in your class? The Hokage's reply caught Iruka off guard. I thought I answered your question, sir, Iruka said. All you gave me was an assessment of Sasuke's academic skills, Hiruzen stated, not the answer to my question. But sir, Iruka said, with regards to every subject I cover and teach, Sasuke proves to be the top student of his class and shows more seriousness in his training, studying and practice. Not that I'm undermining the progress of my other students, but Sasuke stands out above his fellow classmates even without having an activated Sharingan. What's your assessment of Naruto's progress and overall performance? Hiruzen asked. He's my worst student, I'm sorry to say, Iruka replied with a sigh. His grades are the poorest and he still has difficulty perform even the simplest Henge no Jutsu and Bushin no Jutsu properly. He spends much of his time pulling pranks, running and escaping from ninjas he victimizes with his pranks, sleeping in my class, and he barely does his homework correctly. In terms of the ideal student, Naruto and Sasuke are polar opposites. And what was your impression of Naruto in his performance during the Academy Field Day 2 weeks ago? Hiruzen asked. His winning the first match against Sasuke caught me, as well as everyone else off guard, Iruka admitted. Some wanted to believe that it was an absolute fluke, but your detailed explanation silenced whatever argument some wanted to make against Naruto's performance. And that Waroke no Jutsu he used against us? Hiruzen asked. Iruka blushed and lowered his head in shame. My most shameful moment, Iruka replied, some of the kunoichis won't let me and others hear the end of it. To be honest, I'd have thought that they of all the ninjas would have been the angriest at Naruto for that stunt he pulled on us. Instead, the complete opposite happened and they spoke of him in admiration, even now they do. Because he did something that others including Sasuke would have failed to do at his age, Hiruzen stated, and he openly admitted that things would have been different if he were serious. Iruka thought about it, and that was when he realized where Hiruzen was going. He killed us, Iruka acknowledged, all of us, including you. Effortlessly, Hiruzen emphasized, that's the point I'm making, Iruka. Many believe Sasuke to be the most promising student of your class. But the Academy Field Day clearly showed otherwise. Naruto had it within his power to put all of us to death that day because he was clever enough to deceive us into dropping our guards without alerting us to what his motives were. It's embarrassing for me to even own up to the fact that I was taken out by a hentai jutsu in front of everyone before being killed by the user. Sasuke is said to have the highest grades in your class, yet he too was taken out and killed by your proclaimed worst student like all the others. The point I'm making to you, Iruka, is that academy grades do not measure a ninja's potential. Iruka saw where the Hokage was coming. From all this, Iruka, Hiruzen stated, I believe you ought to reassess how you're evaluating your students' abilities. Naruto may not have book smarts like Sakura or the highest grades like Sasuke, but from what I was told by the other Kunoichis who were there during the Academy Field Day, they find that Naruto understands some of the more deeper principles of the way of the ninja with regards to cunning, deception, and using incentives against the enemy. Iruka didn't say a word as he thought about what Hiruzen was saying. That is all, Iruka, Hiruzen said, taking a puff of his pipe. You're dismissed. End flashback. Present day. Hey! Naruto shouted, Iruka-sensei. Iruka snapped out of his trance and returned back to reality. Oh, Iruka apologized, sorry. And you yell at me for spacing out in class, Naruto mocked, practice what you preach, Iruka-sensei. Some in the class snickered at Naruto's remark to the now embarrassed Iruka. Though annoyed, Iruka said nothing to that remark. Whatever, Iruka said, just go back to your seat. Naruto grinned and walked back up the stairs to his desk. As he was sitting down, Hinata was gazing over at him. Before she turned her attention back to the front of the class, she thought back to an incident that happened 3 months ago. 3 months ago, Hinata was leaving the academy and making her way home. Passing by some trees, she came to a halt when some older boys approached and blocked her path. Hey guys, look, the lead bully said, it's the Hyuga heiress. I bet she thinks she's better and above all of us, the second older boy said. That's not true, Hinata stuttered, I don't. Liar. The third boy shouted as he stepped over to her. You think that just because you belong to the Hyuga clan that you should be treated like royalty while looking down on us like peasants. Well, the lead bully said, I think we ought to teach this Hyuga some manners and respect. Get on your hands and knees and apologizes for your arrogance. But Hinata stuttered in her defense. I said get on your hands and knees, the lead bully yelled hotly. Frightened by the older boy's rage, Hinata did as she was told. Now apologize, the fourth bullied ordered. I'm so sorry, Hinata managed. The lead bully went and pulled Hinata's head back by her hair. We can't hear you, the lead bully yelled, apologize properly. I'm sorry, Hinata cried with tears building up and falling from her eyes down her face. The lead bully didn't know what hit him when a fist came and punched hard in the back on his head, forcing him to lose consciousness momentarily before letting go of Hinata's hair as he fell straight to the floor on his face. What? The third bullied exclaimed back. They turned to see their attacker. Look what we have here, the second bully remarked, it's the failure and weakling Uzumaki Naruto. A failure and weakling? Naruto asked before pointing to the knocked out leader, was I the one who got his fat knocked out? Shut up. The fourth bully shouted, you did that because you know in a straight fight you'd lose against him and us. And you guys who proclaim yourselves as future ninjas of Konoha show your strength by bullying younger girls, Naruto mocked with contempt, you guys are disgusting trash. In fact, none of you are even worth the toilet paper I wipe my with. The boys at that point were seething bloodlust toward Naruto. Naruto-kun, Hinata muttered weakly with worry for his safety. The bully's leader was now getting back up. As he did so, he was rubbed his now sore and throbbing bruise on the back on his head. Kid, the leader growled menacingly, you're gonna regret that. Make me. Naruto laughed, but you guys will have to catch me first. After all, I'm as sly as a fox. Naruto then turned and started running into the woods with the bullies chasing after him while forgetting about Hinata completely. Concerned for his safety, Hinata chased after them while trying to keep up with them. Before long she saw that the bullies lost sight of Naruto. Where did that little shit stain go? The leader said while he and his gang were scanning the area. Hinata looked around in search of Naruto while keeping out of sight so not to draw attention to herself. Just as she was about to activate her Byakugan, she caught sight of a large oval object of some sort coming across the heights of the trees and into the location of the four bullies. One of the bullies looked up in time to see something falling and coming at them. "What the hell?" the second bully remarked. But the bullies reacted too late when the object crashed down and burst in the center of them, revealing to be a beehive. The enraged bees shot forth and swarmed around the four bullies by the many hundreds, unleashing painful stings after stings upon the bullies. The boys screamed from the excruciating pain as they tried to swat and beat the bees away, but that only served to anger the bees further as they continued to assault the bullies with their sharp stingers. They four boys soon ran as fast as they could back to Konoha, with the bees continuously attacking them fiercely. Hinata watched the scene unfold until the screaming boys were out of sight and hearing range. "That ought to teach those vermin disgrace to all ninjas a lesson," a voice said. Hinata looked up to see Naruto standing on one of the high tree branches. How did he get up there? Hinata wondered before she saw him jump to a lower branch on another tree and then another. A moment later he jumped down to the ground and walked over to Hinata. "You okay?" Naruto asked as he approached her. Hinata blushed redder as he decreased the gap between them and stood in front of her. "Yes," Hinata said lowly. "Hey," Naruto smiled, "you don't have to be afraid of me. I rescued you from those bullies, remember? They won't be bothering you anymore." "Thank you," Hinata said meekly and appreciatively, "but won't they be coming after you though?" "They'll be too busy receiving medical attention after those bees are finished with them," Naruto grinned. "Right now they're the least of my worries." Hinata let a few tears fall down her face. "Why are you crying?" Naruto asked. "I'm sorry. I was too weak," Hinata cried. I couldn't hold my ground against those bullies." "You're not weak, Hinata," Naruto assured. "You were simply outnumbered by those older boys. It wasn't your fault at all." "It was my fault," Hinata cried. I'm too weak and too much of a coward too. Saint stand up for myself. Even my father and sister, and everyone in my family thinks I'm weak and useless." "That isn't true," Naruto said with conviction as he braced and held Hinata by her shoulders, "and don't ever believe that you are." A surprised Hinata looked at Naruto with teary eyes. "Despite what happened today," Naruto continued, "you came all the way out here following after those bullies who were chasing after me. You showed more concern for my well-being than your own. That's not something a weakling or a coward would do. You do have true courage deep within yourself, Hinata, and it's just dying to come out." "I know it." Hinata couldn't believe what she was hearing, and from the very person she always admired and secretly watched in the shadows. "Do you really believe that?" Hinata asked with uncertainty. "Of course I do." Naruto smiled as he released his hold on her shoulders. "I have no reason to lie to a girl as pretty as you." Hinata's heart started racing and beating hard as she felt excitement filling her soul. "He said I'm pretty," Hinata screamed happily in her mind. "Naruto-kun thinks I'm pretty." "You think I'm pretty?" Hinata asked while desperately hoping she wasn't dreaming. "I do," Naruto said. "You're a pretty maiden with beautiful hair as serene and lavender as midnight, with lovely eyes as full and illustrious as the brightest of moons. You're like a gentle spring rabbit that moves ever so gracefully and elegantly through the meadows." "He's singing poetry to me about me," Hinata thought dreamily. Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean cloth and used it to wipe the tears away from Hinata's face. "Maidens like you shouldn't have reasons to cry," Naruto said, "and if someone gives you one, I'll help you leave them out to dry." Datbeo. Hinata's reasons for her sadness and depression were gone and were replaced with happiness and optimism. "Thank you for your kindness, Naruto-kun," Hinata said. "No, Hinata," Naruto replied, "I should be thanking you, Hinata." Now she had a confused look on her face. "Thanking me for what?" Hinata asked. "For not revealing my true skills to the others and keeping what you know about me to yourself," Naruto said. "I will admit that you have what it takes to be a true spy mistress. I couldn't believe that only recently I found out that you've been watching me all this time." What are you talking about?" Hinata asked nervously. Smiling at Hinata's behavior, Naruto continued as he stepped closer to Hinata. When I said that your hair is like midnight and your eyes are like the brightest of moons, I was referring to your habit of always watching me in the shadows, hiding behind trees, a building or something to keep you hidden from my sight just so you can watch me. Hinata found herself captivated and charmed by his words. You're not angry at me for spying on you? Hinata asked meekly and shyly. Why would I be angry? Naruto asked. I was alone in the dark while your moonlight eyes watched over and acknowledged me. Your acknowledgement of me encouraged me to keep going in spite of what everyone says of me, and for that, I thank you. Naruto took Hinata by the hand and asked, Hinata, I don't want you hiding from me anymore. Would you like to become my friend? Hinata's heart again was racing and beating hard while seeing that Naruto was holding her by the hand. Looking into Naruto's eyes, she saw the sincerity in his question. It would mean so much having you as my friend, Hinata, Naruto said honestly. I have very few people I can call friends, and I would love very much so to call you my friend. So how about it? Would you want to become my friend? Fighting back hard the urge to faint, with a blissful smile and blush on her face, Hinata answered, I'd love to become your friend. Naruto walked with her from the forest hand in hand back to the school where Hyuga Ko was waiting and looking around for her. When Ko caught sight of them walking and talking together happily, he went over wanting to know where they went. Hinata explained that she went for a small walk with her new friend so that she could talk about things. The Hyuga heiress saw the look of somewhat disapproval on Ko's face in her choice in choosing Naruto of all people as a choice of association. Hinata-sama, Ko said, this boy isn't looked on fondly by the villagers, and knowing your father, he more than likely won't approve of your association with this boy. He's my friend, Hinata defended, my first friend in fact, and I won't let anyone take that away from me. Hinata held Naruto's hand tighter and Naruto held her hand just as tight to give her moral support. Ko saw the look in Hinata's eyes and found a strength in them he hadn't seen before. If that's how you feel, Hinata-sama, Ko said, then I'll respect your decision and not interfere. Thank you, Hinata said, never releasing her hold on Naruto's hand. By the way, Hinata-sama, Ko asked, on my way here, I heard that 4 boys were admitted into the hospital for intensive care after being viciously attacked by swarms of bees. From what I heard, they said Naruto was responsible for throwing a beehive at them. Do you honestly think that Naruto-kun could carry and use a beehive as a weapon without being brutally attacked by the bees themselves? Hinata asked. When Ko thought about, he found what Hinata said logical. I see your point, Ko admitted, though some are willing to believe what the boys were saying. Those boys are bullies, Hinata interjected, and they were bullying me earlier today. Naruto-kun defended me and got those bullies away from me. How they later got ambushed by bees, I guess they were at the wrong place at the wrong time. Naruto-kun wasn't near them when they got attacked. He was with me when the attack took place. Ko nodded in acknowledgement of Hinata's words. All right then, Ko said, I believe you, Hinata-sama. But we best be on our way home now. Can Naruto-kun walk with us? Hinata asked. He's your friend, Hinata-sama, Ko said, it's not a problem. Ko walked from behind as he watched Hinata walked hand in hand with Naruto. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen Hinata genuinely happy, smiling and giggling. When he turned to look at Naruto, he found that the boy was just as happy, no sense of malice and danger as many claimed him to be. Though a prankster but not a threat. While walking together, Hinata saw how some parents were looking at both her and Naruto. Some were whispering while others sneered at them with disapproval. She looked and saw how Naruto was looking at everyone looking down at him. She held his hand tighter to reassure him. It's okay, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, don't pay them any mind. I'm your friend, remember? Smiling brightly, Naruto said, yeah. I didn't forget. The onlookers knew better than to try anything unless they wanted to feel the wrath of an angry Hyuga clan leader, Hinata's father. And seeing that the older Hyuga was allowing Hinata to walk with Naruto in the manner she was doing so gave the impression that Hiashi had no ill will toward Hinata and Naruto being together as friends. Some started wondering if this was so among all the other members of the Hyuga clan. Ko saw the looks on the villagers' faces and the whispering that was going on. He then saw one of the villagers approached him. How could you allow the child to walk hand in hand with that? Scorn to our society, a mother of two asked. Ko replied, who Hinata-sama chooses is her associate and friend is her choice. It's not my place to decide for her with whom she can and cannot be friends with. Certainly her father doesn't approve of this, the mother retorted. Ko replied, whether or not he does is none of your or anyone else's concern. Please cease from causing any more trouble for me in escorting Hinata-sama home. Her father is there waiting for our arrival. With that said, Ko went on his way with the two youths. The mother with a couple of onlookers were gaping at what she was told. They thought that Ko had a lot of nerve defending Naruto like that. Thank you, Hinata said. Ko smiled and nodded. End flashback. Present time. Hiyashi at first was somewhat reluctant about allowing Hinata to associate with Naruto, but not because he was a Jinchuriki, but because of Naruto's reputation of being a troublemaker and prankster. Ko vouched for Naruto and helped to persuade Hiyashi in giving a chance Naruto in being Hinata's friend. Hiyashi allowed it on the condition that Naruto doesn't do anything that would pose a threat to Hinata's safety or do anything that would involve trouble for his daughter and mar the Hyuga name. Hinata, even much to her father's surprise, hugged her father in allowing her to be friends with Naruto. Since then, Hinata and Naruto were practically inseparable and Hinata was never ashamed of being seen with the village pariah. Hinata, Iruka called out, Hinata. Hinata snapped back to reality and turned to face the front of the class. Please refrain from daydreaming and pay attention to what I'm teaching, Iruka said. Embarrassed, Hinata meekly apologized, sorry Iruka-sensei. Having gotten that out of the way, Iruka turned back to the chalkboard and resumed writing on it. Despite what she was told, Hinata managed to steal one last glance at Naruto who looked to be writing something down on paper. Whatever it was that Naruto was writing, Hinata figured, had Naruto keenly focused on getting the details on point, more so than the lesson Iruka was going over. During their lunch break, everyone was outside enjoying their food and conversing with their friends. As usual, Sasuke ate by himself while some of the girls sought to get his attention. I don't know what they see in him, Naruto said out loud while momentarily looking up from the book he was reading. Closing his book, he put it away and went over to Sasuke. Hinata followed from a short distance, not wanting to miss the chance to eat beside him. She was angry with herself for being late in arriving to eat with Naruto as she desired to. Yo Sasuke, Naruto called out, grabbing the Uchiha's attention, along with the girls around him. What do you want, Naruto? Ino asked. To ask Sasuke a question, Naruto replied, I wasn't aware that he couldn't speak for himself. Annoyed at Naruto's implication, Sasuke said, what do you want, Obi? And it better be fast. Just something I wanted to know, Naruto said, what's it like having all of these girls from our class always around you constantly wanting your time and attention? Needlessly to say, the question caught Sasuke off guard. What does that matter to you? Sasuke asked. Curiosity, Naruto replied, I mean, what boy in our class wouldn't want to be in your shoes right now, and yet here it is that you're not flaunting it in all of the boys' faces that you're the attraction of all of these girls and they're not. Many boys our age and perhaps older would be jealous. Like you, Sakura started, they don't have what Sasuke have. He's smart, handsome, cool and can do feats that you guys can't do. He has a promising future as one of Konoha's greatest ninjas. And why do you girls fail to gain any acknowledgement from your so-called prince? Naruto asked. I mean, even I see that he has no interest in any of you. Shut up. One of the girls retorted, you're just a stupid kid who wished he was on Sasuke's level. Nah, Naruto said, Sasuke can have that all by himself. My question is, what kind of girl does your Sasuke really want and why he doesn't give you girls such a look? My preference in none of your business, Dobi, Sasuke replied, I have no need to share anything about myself with you. Be that as it may, Sasuke, Naruto said, but I'm just tired of seeing these girls waste their time trying to gain your attention while not knowing what you seek in a female. So why don't you enlighten them, Naruto? Sasuke replied, you seem to know more about me than they do from what I'm hearing. That's just sad, Naruto mocked, the almighty Sasuke can't speak for himself and needs me to speak for him about what kind of girls would interest him. Sorry girls, but if Sasuke isn't willing to speak for himself about his feminine preference, then it simply means that none of you are worth his time. The girls weren't happy about what Naruto was saying, but they couldn't help but see the truth in his words. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, gaining Naruto's attention, please, don't start trouble for yourself. Besides, our lunch period is almost over. I'd like to eat with you, if you'd let me. Sure, Naruto said, I think that would be great. Well girls, I gotta go. You can have Sasuke if you still think he's worth your time and effort. Hinata let out a sigh of relief when Naruto agreed to eat with her. As they walked off, Sasuke thought about what Naruto said and asked in terms of what kind of girl would interest him. When he thought about it, he saw that Naruto was right in that the girls in their class always sought his time and attention. But when he thought more about it, she realized that one girl in their entire class never gave him so much as a look but only sought to be with Naruto instead. That girl, Sasuke contemplated, Hyuga Hinata. Unlike these annoying girls, she doesn't try to be around me and want of being with me. She's the heiress of the Hyuga clan and yet she seeks to be with the Dobi instead of me. Interesting, what's so good about Naruto that would draw Hinata to him? What makes him so special to her? Sasuke-kun, Sakura asked, are you okay? You spaced out there for a minute. It's nothing for you to worry about, Sasuke replied, just thinking about what Naruto said a moment ago. It got me thinking. Before any of the other girls could ask him anything further, Sasuke got up and walked off from the girls. He was walking off, he turned to look at both Naruto and Hinata. What could she possibly see in that Dobi, Sasuke wondered. Before his thought on the subject could go any further, Itachi's depart's words to him during the night of the Uchiha massacre came back to mind. Remembering Itachi's words on hate and having the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke resolved himself to continue in his training to become stronger to defeat Itachi, yet deep behind that resolve was the interest that Hinata wasn't pursuing him like the other girls. Later that day, the day at the academy was over and all of the students were making their way home or were being picked up by someone. As often, Naruto was heading home by himself, thought by this time he was used to living and being alone. As Naruto was seemingly making his way home, Hinata looked and saw that the blonde pariah took out the same piece of paper from his pocket and began reviewing the contents he wrote into it. She wondered what it was that he wrote that in that paper that evidently was worth more of his time and listening to what Iruka was going over in class earlier today. As she was about to head over and approach Naruto, Hinata, a voice called out to her. Hinata turned and was surprised to see Sasuke of all people approaching her. Yes, Hinata asked respectfully. I have a question I would like to ask you, Sasuke said. What's so special about Naruto that makes him worth your time and attention? What do you mean? Hinata asked meekly. You clearly like to be around him, Sasuke said. Why do you wish to focus your time on the class clown who constantly gets himself into trouble with everyone? Hinata found that situation rather ironic considering what happening their lunch break. Naruto-kun isn't a bad person, Sasuke, Hinata defended. It's just his nature to give people something to laugh at. Even if it's at his own expense in terms of his reputation, Sasuke asked skeptically. He has the lowest grades in class and he hardly pays attention in class. Wouldn't you want to be with someone of a more reputable standing with his peers and grown-ups? It was no secret to Hinata that many in Konoha didn't like Naruto for reasons she couldn't understand. When she had asked the grown-ups why, the reasons she got from them did everything but give her a legitimate explanation. It was among the reasons why she would choose to ignore those who would tell her to stay away from Naruto, like how many of the peers of her age group would. Naruto-kun has potential for great things, Hinata said. He just needs a chance and for people to believe in him. And Naruto-kun believes in me too. He thinks I'm strong and have potential despite my weaknesses. And those are the things that keep me going and trying my best to always improve. I'm sure if I believe in his words, I'll see improvements in myself for sure. But it's rather hypocritical of the Dobi to say all those things to you and yet he made little improvements in himself and his abilities, Sasuke replied. Naruto-kun isn't hypocritical, Hinata defended. The fact that he keeps trying despite his difficulties makes me believe in the things he tells me. No one else shows confidence in me, not even members of my own FA family. But, Naruto-kun said it himself that, I'm strong and that I'm. Hinata blushed as remembering Naruto's words about her. You're a pretty girl with beautiful hair as serene and lavender as midnight with lovely eyes as full and illustrious as the brightest of moons. Sasuke's head tilted as he looked at Hinata questionably when her face turned hot red after she stopped talking for a moment. What is she thinking about? Sasuke wondered. Hey Hinata. Hinata snapped out of it with the blush slowly dying down off her face. Your face turned all red for a moment, Sasuke said. What were you thinking about? Oh, Hinata stuttered. Nothing. Anyway, at heart, Naruto-kun is a good person and I know he'll surpass everyone who thinks little of him. That's all I have to say for you to know. Sasuke's skeptic-looking face changed when he shot a grin at Hinata, but that grin wasn't one of innocence but rather one of admiration. You're different from the other girls in class, Hinata, Sasuke complimented. How so? Hinata said. I'm sure there isn't much of a difference. There is, Sasuke interjected, and all the things you said just now proved that. You're not shallow and petty like the rest of those girls. They disgust me. But you're the kind of girl I respect and admire. You stand out from the rest of them. Thank you I guess, Hinata replied as she tapped her two fingers together over and over again. Sasuke moved a little closer to Hinata. Tomorrow, Sasuke said, how about you? Hinata. Sasuke and Hinata turned to see Naruto making his over to them. Naruto-kun, Hinata smiled and greeted. Hinata, Naruto said with a toothy smile, I just remembered that I have a buy one get another large bowl of beef ramen free coupon from Ichiraku and I wanted to know if you'll join me. Hinata's face turned just as red as before. It's almost like he's asking me out on a date, Hinata thought to herself excitedly. How about it Hinata? Naruto said, will you join me? Fighting the feeling to faint, Hinata mustered up her courage and replied, yes. Sweet. Naruto said as she took the blushing Hinata by the hand and led her away, then let's go. Sasuke watched as Naruto led Hinata away from him as they started on their way to Ichiraku. She's truly different from Sakura and the other girls, Sasuke thought. Whatever weakness she says she has, I doubt the Dobi can offer her any real help other than offering her smooth and soothing words of comfort. What she needs is a strong and confident male figure beside her. Sasuke turned and walked off in the opposite direction. As he did so, Naruto turned to see Sasuke leaving and walking away from them. Almost as if it was sensed, Sasuke turned back to look straight at Naruto face to face. The Uchiha shot Naruto a smirk before Naruto returned it with a small sneer, as though he was reading Sasuke's thoughts and intentions. Is everything okay Naruto-kun? Hinata asked with concern seeing the looking on Naruto's face. Turning away from Sasuke, turned back to Hinata. I'm okay, Naruto assured, just making sure that Sasuke-tem isn't causing us trouble. You don't have to worry about him, Hinata now assured, he was just asking me a few questions about you, that's all. As if he doesn't know enough about me, Naruto remarked. He doesn't know you, at all, Hinata replied. Ironically, he came asking me the same questions you asked him and the girls around him earlier during lunch period. After hearing me out, he said that I'm different from the other girls in class and that he respects me for that. Really now? Naruto remarked skeptically. The haughty Sasuke who thinks everyone else is beneath him says he respects you. That's surprising considering his selfish, undisciplined arrogance. During their walk, Hinata noticed that Naruto never released his hold on her hand. It almost felt as though she were on a date with him considering that he is treating her out to eat, even if it was ramen at his favorite ramen stand. As she was walking with Naruto, something came to mind. Naruto-kun, Hinata asked, what was in that paper you were writing in while we were in class? You really seemed to be really into whatever it was you were writing down into that paper. Even after class you looked like you were still working on what you were putting down on that piece of paper. Was it something of importance? Oh, that, Naruto said as he released Hinata's hand and reached into his pocket to retrieve the folded paper. He opened the paper and showed it to Hinata. Her eyes widened upon seeing what it was that Naruto was putting onto that paper. Do you like the picture I drew? Naruto asked with a large toothy smile. The colored drawing Hinata was looking at was a picture of her as a meadow's spring rabbit peacefully grazing on berries on a clear beautiful sunny day with Naruto as a sly and playful fox leaping from the bushes about to pounce on her from behind. I think it best describes us, Naruto remarked. I have to agree, Hinata giggled, can I have this picture? It was meant to be a present for you in the first place Hinata, Naruto said. Thank you, Hinata said as she folded the paper back and placed it into her pocket. It would be among the special items from Naruto that she would always treasure. I'm happy you like it, Naruto said, I got more out of it than Iruka-sensei's ever so boring lectures and history lessons. Naruto went and took Hinata's hand again as they continued on their way to Ichiraku. She smiled feeling Naruto's hand in hers again. You're different from the other girls in class Hinata. Sasuke's words came back to her mind all of the sudden. You're the kind of girl I respect. You stand out from the rest of them. Tomorrow, how about you? Sasuke was obviously going to ask her something, but whatever it was Naruto intervened and got her away from the Uchiha. She sensed that Naruto didn't like the attention Sasuke was giving her. But Hinata was sure that Sasuke didn't have such intentions in mind, at least that was what she wanted to believe. 8 months later, Hinata was sitting on a couch in Naruto's apartment. She arrived at his front door not an hour ago after Naruto got through cleaning and making sure everything was spick and span, and putting everything away before her arrival. When she saw how dirty his place was the first time she came by, she helped him clean, sweep and mop his apartment and asked if he would keep it that way especially when she came by. She told him that it would make her feel more comfortable being in his apartment when it was kept clean and smelling fresh. And Naruto, wanting to please his only female friend, made sure to always keep his apartment clean despite the slums his home was located. Hinata sat on the couch patiently after being invited by Naruto to come by for something he wanted to show her. So Naruto-kun, Hinata asked, what was it you wanted to show me? I'll show you, Naruto said, but not here. Before Hinata could reply, Naruto grabbed and scooted her into his arms, carrying her bridal style. Naruto-kun, Hinata said with a heavy blush on her face. With a small whirl of wind Naruto teleported from his apartment with Hinata and into a more isolated section of the forest. Shushin number jutsu, Naruto grinned, I finally got the hang of this jutsu. I can execute Shushin perfectly now. That's great Naruto-kun, Hinata congratulated. But that's not what I wanted to show you, Naruto said as he set Hinata down on her bare feet since she left her sandals back at his apartment when she took them off at his front door. Naruto too was barefooted and standing on the cool grass and dirt. Then what was it? Hinata asked. Grinning, Naruto took a few steps back and removed his black t-shirt, leaving him bare-chested in only his pants. This wasn't the first time Hinata seen Naruto without his shirt on since there were occasions Naruto sparred with Hinata secretly without wearing his shirt. Putting his hands together, Naruto formed a complex hand seal and focused chakra into his body. A few short moments later, Hinata saw intricate glowing seal writings appear all over Naruto's body from the crown on his head to the sole of his feet. At the center of his forehead, shoulders, back, the top of his hands, the center of his chest and the top of his feet each had a spiral design with small complex writings around them. What are those seal writings all over your body Naruto-kun? Hinata asked with an amazed and curious expression. After 3 grueling months, Naruto said, I finally perfected my Inryoku Fujin and Chakra Sokubaku Fujin. Inryoku Fujin and Chakra Sokubaku Fujin, Hinata repeated. That's right, Naruto confirmed. They're special seals that increases the gravity force exerted on my body and restrain my chakra reserves as they grow bigger. They're far more advanced and more effective than wearing weights on your body and I can adjust the amount of gravity exerted on me. This also helps to strengthen and increase and control my speed and chakra output. That's wonderful Naruto-kun, Hinata cheered, I'm so happy for you. Hinata was very well aware of Naruto's awakening knowing seals and other complex jutsus. It was only a few of months ago when Naruto decided to let her in on his unexplainable changes and improvements and how he had been training himself alone to advance in whatever new information awakened inside his mind. Hinata had sworn to secrecy to never reveal what Naruto shared with her. She even went as far as to cut her palm and swear a blood oath in front of him as proof of her promise. These seals will require a great deal of getting used to as it restricts my movement with the added effort needed to even lift regular objects, Naruto said, but in time, my body will adjust with each level difficulty increase. How were you able to write those seals on your body? Hinata asked. Actually, Naruto explained, these seals activate and spread all around my body from a central point, in the center of my chest, right in the area where my heart is located. But only a seal master could write and apply the Inryoku Fujin and Chakra Sokubaku Fujin to either oneself or another person. I see, Hinata said. So? Naruto asked. Hinata looked at him with a confused look. So what? How about it? Naruto asked. How about what? Hinata asked. How about I give you these seals? Naruto offered. It'll be a great asset for you. You want to give me the Inryoku Fujin and Chakra Sokubaku Fujin? Hinata asked. That's right, Naruto said as they reached into his pants pocket and retrieved an ink bottle and ink brush. I don't want you slowly getting stronger and faster. With these two seals, your strength, speed and chakra control and reserves will greatly increase faster than it would have through regular training. Do you really believe I can handle such seals? Hinata asked. Without a doubt, Naruto smiled. I want you to have what it takes to advance underneath everyone's nose. What do you mean? Hinata asked with a confused expression. No one can be aware of your true improvements, Naruto explained. I want you to act as though you're still a weak disappointment in everyone's eyes. But why? Hinata asked with a bit of a saddened tone. It's hard enough that father thinks more highly of Hanabi than of me as someone with promising potential. Why must I hide whatever improvements I make from him and everyone else? We're training to become ninjas, right? Naruto asked. Why yes, Hinata nodded. And isn't deception one of the major arts ninjas used as one of their primary weapons? Naruto asked. It is, Hinata agreed. That's why I hide my true abilities from everyone else but you of course, Naruto explained. I play the part of the goofy, troublemaking prankster and dead last of our class. In all this, Sasuke, having the top grades in everything in our class, is viewed by everyone as the one with the most promising potential to become the strongest of all of us. He draws all the attention away from me. But isn't that what we want to aspire to, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, to become stronger and surpass our limitations. Didn't you say that your dream is to become Hokage? It is, Naruto said, among other things. But to reveal our true power and abilities too earlier on in our development and demonstrating in front of everyone what we can truly do like how Sasuke does is dangerous. Keep in mind Hinata-chan that not everyone in Konoha is our friend. We can never know who's an ally or spy until it's too late and by then they might already gained a lot of information on us and our abilities. And through this, they can develop ways to counter us and relay this to whatever enemies we have. It almost sounds like you're using Sasuke as your personal decoy, Hinata remarked, not that I think you are. The fewer enemies we have that knows what our abilities are the better, Naruto replied, plus I don't use people, just their arrogance. If I were to follow this plan of yours, Hinata asked, when would we be allowed to show our true power and abilities? When it truly calls for it, Naruto answered, but we would have to be careful when discerning how much we want to reveal about our true selves. Remember, the fewer that's known about us the better we can catch our enemies off guard when or should they try to attack or ambush us. Hinata took a moment to contemplate on Naruto's words. After giving his words careful consideration, she saw that he made a lot of sense. You really are sly fox, Hinata smiled. And you're the ever-gentle spring rabbit that knows when to hide and show her sharp teeth, Naruto replied, so how about it, Hinata-chan? Are you willing to go along with my plan for us? Hinata nodded. Great, Naruto said before opening the ink bottle and putting the ink brush into the bottle. Now Hinata-chan, I need for you lift and took off your shirt and take off my shirt. Hinata stuttered with shocked and a huge blush on her face. Yo, you can't be serious. I won't lie to you, Hinata. Naruto sighed. In order to give you these two seals, I must write them between your S and activate them. County, couldn't there be another way to do this? Hinata asked, feeling embarrassed that she would have to take off her shirt in front of Naruto. Unless we know of a master class seal mistress, then no, Naruto remarked, and even if we did, it would raise two questions about how I acquired these seals and why we're employing her to place them on you. But why between my S? Hinata asked with the blush never leaving her face. Because that's where the source of the Inryoku Fujin and Chakra Sokubaku Fujin were designed to originate, near the heart. Your heart is what will be used to empower the two seals. So long your heart beats, the Inryoku Fujin and Chakra Sokubaku Fujin will always work and your increase of chakra will add to its strength, but you can control how much chakra you want to put into the seals or take out. That was where I place the two seals on my own body. But I won't force this on you if you feel too embarrassed to go through with this. It's ultimately up to you. Hinata thought about what Naruto was saying. It wasn't like he was telling her to take off all of her clothes and stand in front of him. It's okay if you don't feel comfortable about what placing the seal on you entails, Naruto assured. In fact, we can forget about. And no, Hinata interjected, I'll do it. Do you really want to? Naruto asked sincerely. Like I said, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Gulping, Hinata nervously reached for the bottom of her shirt and slowly pulled it up off her, leaving her barefooted in her pants. Hinata looked to see Naruto gawking at her and holding his bleeding nose with a napkin while fighting the perverted smile and giggles that were begging to come out. Naruto-kun is staring at me with those eyes of his, Hinata thought, though part of her felt some measures of feminine satisfaction and excitement that she was developing into someone desirous. Hinata-chan's father would seek my immediate execution if he were to see or learn of this, Naruto thought, though seeing Hinata-chan like this will fuel my wet dreams and fantasies for weeks. Pushing those thoughts deep behind his mind, Naruto returned his mind back to his objective. Now Hinata-chan, Naruto instructed, I'll need you to lie on your back on your shirt like a mat so I can first write the seal outlines between your S. I do wonder why we can't do this back in your place, Naruto-kun, Hinata said. Ever since that incident when I knocked out all of those would-be ninjas and all of the other ninjas in the Hokage simultaneously with my Warok no Jutsu during our academy field day, Naruto explained, I've been put under a magnifying glass with the Hokage and several others keeping an eye on me and watching my movements. I know that they're suspicious of me and my true potential. And if one of them were to see you undressed halfway in my apartment, looked at himself and with me still being shirtless, and while not fully knowing what we were discussing, we would have a most difficult time explaining to the Hokage and your father what we were doing and what we were not about to engage in. Hinata's face burned a sanguine red when the implications of Naruto's words came at full force. She almost passed out from realization where Naruto was going with what he was saying, and if she was honest with herself, the idea of getting caught in the forest as they were right now kind of excited her. I say your point, Naruto-kun, Hinata agreed before she lied on her front on her shirt. Naruto went over to her and prepared to place the seals on her as he knelt down next to her at her right. Bear with me on this, Naruto requested, this process will take a while, but not all day. Taking the ink brush, Naruto started writing the outlining of the seals around the designated area on her body. Hinata giggled, that tickles Naruto-kun. Glad to see no expression of discomfort on your face, Naruto grinned back at her. It took another 33 minutes until Naruto was done with the intricate outlining of the Inryoku Fujin. When that was done, he carefully began filling in the outlining of the seal with ink and made sure not to miss a spot or drop ink in the wrong region of the seal. After another 15 minutes, Naruto was done with that task. All right, Hinata-chan, Naruto said as he cleaned and put the ink brush and bottle away, now for the Chakra Sokubaku Fujin. It wasn't until 45 minutes when Naruto was done writing and drawing the second seal around the first one. Now, Naruto said, I'm going to finalize and activate the seals simultaneously. Naruto gave the ink several minutes to dry first. After seals dried, he gathered the required amount of chakra before performing a set of complex hand signs and then placing his right hand on spot where the seals were. Hinata's face burned dark red upon seeing where Naruto's hand was. Naruto-kun is touching my ass, Hinata screamed in both shock and excitement. Fuin Jutsu. Seigo Fujin, Naruto said as he sent chakra from his hand and into the seals to activate them. Hinata cringed when she suddenly felt pain traveling all around her body as seal writings start appearing and spreading all around her body and head. What is this? Hinata managed to say, why does this hurt so much? It's part of the integration process, Naruto said, the two seals are spread all around your body and chakra coils as your body is being forced to adjust and adapt to the new seals. You never said it would hurt this much, Hinata retorted. I know, Naruto admitted, sorry for keeping that bit of information from you. But I figured that the idea of immense pain would shy you away from accepting having these seals placed on you. That's not fair, Hinata remarked as she winced and cringed from the pain. No, it wasn't, Naruto admitted, but you'll thank me later for this. 2 minutes later, the seal disappeared from sight into Hinata's body. When that was done, the immense pain Hinata felt was completely gone, although she felt some heaviness and restraint with her body and chakra coils now. I feel better now, Hinata said, but it's difficult to even move right. That's your body responding to the adaptation of the force now placed around your body, Naruto said, the seals are now activated. You're currently on level 1 on both seals. Naruto stood back up and helped Hinata stand back on her feet. What level are you currently on? Hinata asked. Level 2.5, Naruto replied, level 1 was too light for me. But it's still difficult moving in my current level, but I try not to show it too much. Naruto reached down and retrieved Hinata's shirt. I think you better put this back on, Hinata-chan, Naruto said, you flashed me enough for the day. Hinata's face turned red again at what Naruto was implying after giving her back her shirt. I'm not the kind of girl, Naruto-kun, Hinata chided Naruto. But I'm sure you enjoyed it, Naruto teased, I know I. You're not planning on telling, are you? Hinata asked worriedly. Hell no, Naruto replied, no one else needs to know. This was our private and sacred bonding moment. Our private and sacred bonding moment, Hinata repeated. That's right, Naruto said, I know I was only teasing you earlier, but I took what I did very seriously. Those seals were gifts I shared with you as my closest friend. Naruto reached out and took Hinata's right hand and placed it on his chest as he placed his right hand between her exposed S. Both youths were feeling each other's heartbeats. You feel that, Hinata-chan, Naruto said, that's the beats of our hearts dancing together harmoniously. We linked our hearts together through the use of these very seals. Again, Hinata was captivated by Naruto's metaphoric and poetic character. Yes, Hinata said with a bright smile, our hearts are linked together harmoniously. Removing his hand off her, Naruto allowed her to put her shirt back on as he placed his own shirt back on. When they were done, Naruto scooped her off her feet and carried her in his arms bridal style. Here we go, Naruto said as he shushined back to his apartment and back in his living room. We're back, Naruto said, stating the obvious, I'm sure you're thirsty and hungry from that experience. How about some tea and frosted cinnamon rolls? Hinata nodded her head, I'd love that very much. Hinata and Naruto spent the rest of the day talking and relating stories to each other. The Hyuga heiress laughed at some of the things Naruto told her with regards to the latest jokes and pranks he pulled on his unsuspecting victims, some of them Junin and Anbu ninjas. Pretty much, Hinata had a great time with Naruto. A week later, it was another typical day at the academy, almost typical since many students and teachers noticed that Hinata became rather clumsy and stumbling in her walking all of a suddenly for the couple of days. True to Naruto's words, she was having difficulty adjusting to the effects of the two seals and she felt more tired than normal as a result. When asked why by her teachers, Hinata said that she had been exerting herself harder in her training in order to improve. While the teachers approved of her wanting to improve, they told her that she was only doing more harm to herself by overworking herself and not taking the required amount of rest needed. Regardless, Naruto was there to give her the needed support. Meanwhile in class, Hinata was doing all she could to focus on Iruka's lecture. But frequently her mind would drift and replay the event that took place between her and Naruto a week ago. Whenever she recalled how she stood shirtless in front of Naruto, she giggled and blushed uncontrollably. That of course didn't go unnoticed by some in the class, especially Ino. That look, Ino said lowly to herself, that giggle, and the way she's irregularly blushing. Ino then grinned mischievously, Hinata obviously did something naughty. Later that day, Hinata was outside sitting at one of the tables she reserved for both herself and Naruto. It was now everyone's lunch break and Naruto was soon to arrive. As she was waiting, Ino approached her. Hey Hinata. Ino said as she came and sat next to the Hyuga heiress. You feeling alright? Hinata was surprised that Ino came to talk with her. The blonde-haired girl took out her lunch and placed it on the table. I'm fine, thank you, Hinata replied. Smiling, Ino continued, so spill it. Spill what? Hinata asked with a confused look. Why you were blushing and giggling in class while taking peeks at Naruto here and there? Ino replied with a smile. Obviously, something happened, something naughty you did. I'm sure it involves Naruto. What or why you, tall ki kng about, Hinata stuttered and gulped, getting very nervous and fearful about the fact that Ino was onto her. You can tell me, Ino persisted as she started eating her lunch, it's just talk between us girls. I want to hear what happened. Ino was notorious for gossip and was always trying to find the latest on anyone and anything. And she was also notorious for spread the latest news and rumors about anyone. The reas no, nothing G to saw say, Ino-san, Hinata stuttered, desperately hoping that would get Ino off her back. Nothing happened. Mon, Ino insisted between bites of her lunch, don't be a spoiled sport. I know you did something, you don't want others to know. If you know that for a fact, a voice said, then you're best to leave Hinata alone. Both girls turned to see Sasuke standing behind them with his own lunch in hand. Sasuke-kun, Ino greeted. Hinata evidently doesn't wish to discuss her business with you, Sasuke said, so why do you just let her be? Ino felt disappointed that she would get the latest info from Hinata, but she placed her wanting to gain Sasuke's favor as a priority over her want for hearing the latest gossip. Alright Sasuke-kun, Ino chirped, whatever you say. Sasuke was over and sat next to Hinata at her left while Ino was sitting by Hinata at her right. He set his own lunch down and started eating. It's okay to eat now Hinata, Sasuke said, there's no need to wait for Naruto while I'm here. From a distance not too far from where Hinata, Ino and Sasuke were, Shikamaru and Choji were watching the scene from another table. That Sasuke is proving to be a real troublesome person, Shikamaru said, more than usual. How does that come off as a surprise? Choji remarked. Sasuke's been cold, harsh and callous since his clan's extermination by Itachi's hands, Shikamaru said. His traumatizing experience turned him into a completely different person since that day. What made him suddenly want to be friendly with Hinata for these past couple of months is the troublesome part. Why is that? Choji asked. Hinata obviously don't pay attention to Sasuke as heavily as all the other girls do, Shikamaru elaborated. She doesn't pester him for dates nor does Hinata try to get his attention in any flirtatious or romantic way. She focuses more in her studying and training as a future ninja with no objective to prove anything to Sasuke. You suppose those factors could be the reason why Sasuke started to take an interest in Hinata? Choji asked. Much to the other girls' dismay, Shikamaru said as his eyes caught sight of someone approaching the table Hinata was sitting at, and to Naruto's irritation. Naruto was making his way to the table Hinata was sitting at. He was annoyed enough that Iruka held him in class longer than he wanted because of some bothersome questions Iruka wanted to ask him concerning his study and training habits. And seeing Sasuke sitting with Hinata didn't help things either. He's doing it again, Naruto grumbled in his mind as he saw Sasuke making conversation with Hinata. It wasn't like Naruto didn't want Hinata to eat or speak to anyone while he wasn't around since she was free to do what she felt comfortable doing. Nor did Naruto ever try to control when or with whom she could eat or talk to. But Sasuke's ulterior motives were what irritated Naruto. Collecting himself together and not letting emotions cloud his judgment, Naruto calmly approached the table and Hinata-chan, Naruto called out. The trio at the table turned to see Naruto approaching them with a cheesy grin on his face. Naruto-kun, Hinata greeted, obviously happy and relieved to see him. What took you? Baka Iruka-sensei, Naruto replied, as if his lectures weren't bad enough, he had me stay longer for more ridiculous questions I didn't feel like answering. Naruto saw that both sides of Hinata were occupied by Ino and Sasuke, and he knew that neither would get up nor leave if asked them to. And he didn't want to give the wrong impression by asking Hinata to come with him to another table away from Ino and Sasuke. Dobi, Sasuke remarked, quit being a bother by not standing around us all day like a wooden statue. Ignoring Sasuke, Naruto went over and sat at the other side of the table facing Hinata. I think sitting at this side of the table is better, Naruto said, while you two are eating with nothing more but my greatness to look at, I get the privilege of looking straight at Hinata-chan's full moonlight eyes as much as I want. Naruto-kun, Hinata giggled and blushed with her hands on her cheeks. Ino snickered at the scene, loving the juicy gossip she could spread from what she was hearing and watching firsthand. Sasuke wasn't at all amused as his conversation with Hinata was cut off by Naruto's presence. I was talking to Hinata before you interrupted Dobi, Sasuke said. Really? Naruto replied as he started eating. Well then, if she feels like whatever you have to say is of any importance, then I won't interfere. Not giving Naruto any retort, Sasuke turned his attention back to Hinata. Like I was saying, Sasuke continued, your kunai and shuriken throwing techniques have been rather sluggish lately and your endurance in our practice sessions with the other senseis have been below your normal results. I'm curious to know what happened to cause your decrease in stamina and output. Ino wasn't at all surprised by Sasuke's demeanor around Hinata as he showed more interest in the Hyuga heiress than any other female. Naruto ate and stayed quiet, wanting to see how things were going to play out and where Sasuke was aiming the intentions of his questions. It's not that my stamina and output decreased, Sasuke, Hinata said, it's just that my new form of training started taking a toll on my body lately. It's realistically to be expected when we seek to adapt to new methods of training and improving to become stronger than before, yes. Sasuke nodding in agreement, it is. I too push myself as hard as I can, trying to go beyond my own limitations and reach new plateaus. Clearly we have something in common. Perhaps we can practice and spar together from time to time. I accept the offer of sparring with you, Naruto interjected, I've been meaning to put you in your place for some time now, Tem. Oh, this is getting good, Ino chuckled in her mind at the scene unfolding. Annoyed Sasuke remarked, I wasn't intending that I practice and spar with you, Dobi, and I never invited you into our conversation. How about we allow Hinata-chan to decide if I can join these spar sessions or not, Naruto suggested, that ought to be fair enough, wouldn't you say? I was the one who was extending the invitation out to her, Sasuke replied, and I'm sure Hinata can handle being and spending her time with me without you around her all the time. Besides, it would be refreshing for me to be around a female future ninja who's more concerned about her career as a kunoichi than how she looks like in the mirror. Such a kunoichi would prove to be a true asset and partner to me in the long run. Naruto saw what Sasuke was doing and it was really pissing him off. Is that right? Naruto remarked as he stood up from the table, you're looking for such a kunoichi, yes. Sasuke stood up and was about to give Naruto a retort when. Hey everyone! Naruto shouted so everyone could hear him, Sasuke is lonely and looking for a female partner to spar with right now and later join him as his long-term partner. Is there no girl available? Who can answer his cries to satisfy his needs and end his loneliness? Much to Sasuke's dread, all of the girls, including Sakura and Ino obviously, were in hearing range when they heard Naruto's declaration. Sasuke-kun wants a long-term female partner, one of the girls exclaimed excitedly. I'm that girl, another girl proclaimed. The hell you are, Sakura retorted before she and all of other girls ran up to Sasuke begging him to choose them as his sparring partner. In the confusion, Naruto appeared and grabbed Hinata's hand and ran off with her, leaving Sasuke alone to deal with the large crowd of girls pleading for his time and attention. Damn you, Naruto, Sasuke cursed as he lost sight of Hinata and Naruto. Meanwhile, Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba and Shino were watching the scene from another table. They had been doing so the entire time. You got to admire the way Naruto deals with Sasuke, Kiba laughed with Akamaru's settle inside his jacket, it's quite entertaining. Somehow I doubt we'll see this issue between Naruto and Sasuke end soon, if peacefully, Shino added. They clearly have eyes on the same girl, Choji said as he partook of his bag of potato chips. Troublesome, Shikamaru remarked, the top student competing against the worst student over a girl in class. Honestly, I don't see this ending peacefully. As much as Kiba, Choji and Shino didn't want to admit, but they had to agree with Shikamaru's conclusion. Elsewhere, Naruto was laughing his off as he shushined to a secluded training ground with Hinata at the other side of the academy. That was an insane stunt you pull, Naruto-kun, Hinata giggled. Serves that jerk right, Naruto remarked. He ought to look for his own sparring partner instead of trying to steal somebody else's. While Hinata wasn't Naruto's official girlfriend, she wasn't blind to see that Naruto would get jealous when another guy would try to get her attention in a manner that would set off red flags in Naruto's head. Well, Naruto-kun, Hinata suggested, since we're here and alone, how about we? Attention everyone, the announcer said from the loudspeaker. Attention everyone. Lunch break is over. Please clean up and return back to your class. Thank you so much for whatever it was you wanted us to do with our remaining time, Naruto said. It's all right, Hinata assured. I was only suggesting a little exercise to help me adjust to these new seals. It's still difficult adapting to them. Don't worry, Hinata-chan, Naruto assured. With me at your side, you'll surpass whatever hindrance you have and then some. Datbeo. Hinata smiled brightly as Naruto took hold of her hand and walked back into the academy building with her. Naruto-kun, Hinata asked. Yeah, Naruto replied. Would you like to become my long-term partner? Hinata asked. We already are, Naruto grinned. Remember what I said last week? Our hearts are linked and beat harmoniously as one. Hinata giggled and replied, yes, I remember our private and sacred bonding moment, Naruto-kun. And I'll always treasure it.